On New Year's Eve, my husband demanded a divorce. My mother-in-law forced me to sign an agreement to leave with nothing. The only thing I took was a small purse, a memento left by my late mother. When my daughter opened it, she suddenly cried out, "Mommy, look at this." The boom of fireworks echoed from downtown, a distant, muffled thunder. Brilliant bursts of light flashed through the open window, illuminating the tiny dust motes dancing in the air. Outside, the world was celebrating the peaceful arrival of a new year. Families gathered in joyful union. But inside the vast, cold living room of the Walker estate, the air was so thick and suffocating, I felt a stone slab pressing down on my chest. The faint scent of old potpourri from a bowl on the mantelpiece mingled with the smell of cold tea on the coffee table, creating a bitter aroma that stung my nose. Ethan sat with his legs crossed, on the expensive sheepskin sofa. His face was a cold mask. His eyes, the same eyes that had once promised me the world, were now filled with undisguised contempt and disgust. He tossed a stack of papers onto the glass tabletop. The sharp slap of paper against glass shattered the silence. I lowered my eyes to the bold words at the top. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Ethan tapped a rhythmic finger on the table, his voice flat and devoid of emotion. Sign it. All the arrangements have been made. This house is my family's property. You have no right to demand anything. As for Sky, you will also voluntarily relinquish your parental rights to me. You're currently unemployed and saddled with a mountain of medical debt from your mother's funeral 3 months ago. What are you going to raise a child with? Ethan's words were like a carving knife, slicing into my heart with each syllable. For the past 3 years, because I trusted him, because I wanted to preserve a complete family, I had gritted my teeth and resigned from my position as a content team lead, becoming a full-time stay-at-home mom. I had dedicated my youth to building this family, only to be rewarded tonight with a black and white document forcing me to leave empty-handed, stripped even of the child I had carried and birthed. Eleanor, my mother-in-law, who had been standing with her arms crossed in the corner, finally stepped forward with a sneer. She smoothed the front of her silk blouse and jutted her chin out, looking at me with the cruel eyes of a woman obsessed with family legacy and a male heir. Her voice was sharp and piercing. Other women marry and have sons, carrying on the family name. But you, after years of living off my son's hard work, managed to produce only one daughter and then nothing. The Walker name cannot end with Ethan. If you know what's good for you, sign this quickly and get out. Stop clinging to this house like a leech. You're a curse. You brought nothing but death with you the moment you stepped through that door. She was referring to my mother's passing. The pain of that loss was still raw, the wound in my heart still fresh, and now the people I called family were rubbing salt into it. I took a deep breath, swallowing the tears that threatened to fall. Crying and begging now would only give them more satisfaction. I couldn't be weak anymore. I straightened my back, my gaze fixed firmly on Ethan and Eleanor. I spoke with a clear, resonant voice. Fine, a divorce it is. But my daughter, the one I carried and labored for, will absolutely not be left in this cold-blooded house. Don't even think about taking Sky from me. With that, I turned and walked quickly to the bedroom. 3-year-old Sky was sleeping soundly on her soft bed. Her small face was serene and beautiful, like a little angel's. I hurriedly pulled an old suitcase from the closet and threw in a few sets of clothes for us. Looking around the room that was once our sanctuary, my heart felt hollow. Everything here was bought with Ethan's money. I wouldn't take any valuables, except for a small, hand-embroidered purse with a crane pattern, its edges frayed with age. It was the only heirloom my mother had left me before she passed. As she gave it to me, she had whispered breathlessly that I must keep it safe, that I should only open it when I had reached a dead end, when my life was in peril. I gently lifted Sky into my arms. She stirred, then snuggled into the crook of my neck and went back to sleep. With my daughter in one arm and the suitcase in the other, I walked straight to the front door. Ethan stood watching, a faint, mocking smile on his lips. "Let's see how long a useless woman like you can survive on the streets," he jeered. "Don't come crawling back here begging me." The heavy oak door slammed shut behind me, severing the 5 years of my humiliating marriage. The bitter New Year's Eve wind whipped at me, chilling me to the bone. I held my daughter tighter and walked into the uncertain night. From this moment on, I had nothing but my own 2 hands and a tiny life to protect. At dawn, the biting cold of the Southern California winter morning showed no signs of letting up. I sat huddled with Sky on a cold stone bench at a deserted bus stop under a freeway overpass. The few crumpled bills in my coat pocket, amounting to less than $40, were all I had in the world. My stomach growled, but I clenched my jaw, determined to save the money to buy Sky a carton of milk when the sun was fully up. Sky stirred and woke. She rubbed her big round eyes, looking around in a daze at the trucks thundering across the overpass. She didn't cry or ask to go home, nor did she ask for her grandmother. Perhaps a child's intuition was sharp enough to sense the strange tension emanating from the mother holding her so tightly. Sky slid off my lap. Her tiny hands playfully touched the suitcase, then her fingers brushed against the embroidered crane purse I had placed beside me. She pulled hard on the drawstring. The knot was old and loose, and it came undone easily. The purse fell open. Inside was not the collection of small trinkets I had always imagined. My eyes fell upon a stack of documents, carefully wrapped in a waterproof plastic sleeve, next to a small, dark red booklet. I snatched the purse from her, my heart pounding violently. My mother had been a humble high school teacher her whole life, living frugally, her pension devoured by chemotherapy treatments for lung cancer. And yet, this purse contained things that made my head spin. With trembling hands, I removed the plastic sleeve. The first thing I picked up was a grant deed. The owner's name was clearly written, Eleanor Vance. The property address was in a suburban area of the San Fernando Valley. I vaguely recalled my mother mentioning long ago that she had bought a small plot of land for her retirement. I had assumed she sold it to cover her medical bills. Underneath the deed was a notice from the city of Los Angeles regarding a zoning and eminent domain plan for a new urban development project. The number listed in the proposed compensation frame made me hold my breath. Investiday. $4 million. My hands fumbled as I picked up the second item. It was a certificate of deposit from a federal bank, issued in my name, Maya Vance. The principal amount was $80,000, deposited 3 months before my mother died. Tears streamed down my face, blurring the protective plastic. My mother had secretly prepared a solid safety net for the daughter she knew was living unhappily with her in-laws. She had kept it all a secret to avoid the greedy clutches of Ethan's family. But the most shocking discovery lay at the bottom. It was a prenuptial agreement. My eyes widened as I saw Ethan's familiar signature scrawled in the bottom right corner. The document stated clearly and unequivocally that the mansion we lived in, along with all its furnishings, was Ethan's sole and separate property, acquired before our marriage. I had contributed nothing to it, and had no right to a division of it upon divorce. I burst out laughing, a bitter, hollow sound that mingled with the wind whistling through the steel girders of the overpass. Ethan had constantly threatened to throw me out with nothing, warning he would take everything if I didn't obey. He thought I was so stupid I would panic and cling to him. He was so confident that I coveted his wealth. He had no idea that I was never entitled to a share of that house in the first place. This fact had been established before we even married, but in return, this very document was now my most perfect shield. Ethan couldn't touch a single penny of the enormous fortune my mother had just left me. The law was clear. A personal inheritance is not considered marital property. The despair, the fear of a penniless future, vanished in an instant. An invisible strength surged up from the ground, through my feet, and into my veins. I had money. I had land worth millions. I had more than enough financial stability to stand before a court and confidently, legally, win custody of my daughter. Ethan and Eleanor had grossly underestimated the resilience of a mother. This was a battle I would win. I pulled my old, cracked screen phone from my pocket and found a familiar name in my contacts. I pressed call. The ringing echoed in the quiet of the early morning. Soon, the line connected. The warm, kind voice of a middle-aged man answered. "Hello, Maya. Is that you? It's New Year's Day. Is everything all right?" I suppressed a wave of emotion, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mr. Davis, I'm so sorry to call you at this hour. Ethan and I, we're getting a divorce. I left the house with Sky last night. I really don't know where to go. Can you come get us?" There was a moment of silence on the other end, followed by the clatter of car keys and the sound of hurried footsteps. Mr. Davis didn't ask a single question about the reason or circumstances. He just said, in a short, decisive tone, "Read me your address. I'm on my way. And bundle that little girl up. It's cold out there." Mr. Davis was my mother's college friend, one of her few true confidants. For years, he had always been there to help her with the smallest things, from fixing a leaky pipe to driving her to doctor's appointments when I was busy serving my in-laws. I had always considered him family. Exactly 20 minutes later, Mr. Davis's silver 7-seater SUV pulled up to the bus stop. He rushed out, his face etched with worry. He quickly wrapped a thick fleece blanket around Sky and helped us into the warm back seat. He put my suitcase in the trunk, got into the driver's seat, and headed toward the suburbs. After an hour's drive, we stopped in front of a moss-green iron gate, surrounded by a fence overflowing with bougainvillea. Mr. Davis got out, opened the gate, and led us onto a small patio paved with terracotta tiles. Before me stood a solid, single-story house, its walls painted a clean, pale yellow, with a new-looking red tile roof. A wide porch held a set of wicker chairs. I looked around, bewildered. This was not the old, dilapidated rental my mother and I had lived in before my marriage. This plot of land was likely the retirement plot she had mentioned, but I never knew a beautiful house like this existed on it. Mr. Davis pushed the door open and flicked on a light switch. Warm, yellow light filled the small living room. He turned to me, his voice heavy with emotion. "Maya, this is the land your mother bought all those years ago. She secretly hired me to oversee the construction of this house for her 2 years ago. Your mother made me promise to keep it a secret, to wait until the storm truly hit before bringing you here. She saw right through that Walker family a long time ago." I stepped inside, stunned by the completely unfamiliar yet deeply comforting space. I had never set foot in this house, but the furniture and decorations were intimately familiar. I walked over and touched the worn corner of an oak cabinet, caressing the old foot-pedal sewing machine my mother used to use. Mr. Davis's voice was somber as he explained, "In her final months, your mother sensed the troubles that were coming for you. She asked me to secretly move all of her most precious belongings from the old rental house here for safekeeping." He walked to a corner of the room, pried up a floor tile, and revealed a small, hidden compartment. From it, he pulled out an intricately carved wooden box and handed it to me. I slowly opened the lid. Inside was a handwritten letter on yellowed notebook paper. The purple ink had faded with time. I opened it and immediately recognized my mother's elegant, flowing script. "My dear Maya, when you read these words, I will likely be long gone, and you will be facing a great challenge in your life. I know your husband's family treated you poorly, but I didn't stop you because I understood you needed to experience it yourself to grow stronger. I've left you this house and a little bit of my retirement savings. It's not much, but it's enough so that you and your daughter will never have to bow your heads to anyone. Remember my words. As a woman, you can lose love, but you must never lose your dignity. Live with your head held high. Be a strong tree to shelter little Sky. I am always with you." Her every word was like a warm current, flowing through my scarred heart. I folded the letter, pressed it tightly to my chest, and closed my eyes. That's right. I was no longer a submissive wife for people to trample on. From this day forward, I am Maya, a resilient mother, a warrior, ready to fight back against those who heartlessly threw my daughter and me out into the cold. I looked at Mr. Davis, my eyes shining with a newfound intensity. The real battle was just beginning. On the morning of January 2nd, warm sunlight streamed through the bougainvillea leaves, casting dappled patterns on the red brick porch. I woke up from the deepest, most peaceful sleep I'd had in years. There were no sounds of my mother-in-law demanding breakfast. No disapproving glares from my husband, only the chirping of birds outside and the steady breathing of Sky beside me. After getting ready, I picked up the phone and called Jess. Jess had been my best friend since college. We had shared a dorm room, splitting packs of instant ramen to get by. Now, she was a renowned divorce attorney in the city, famous for her sharp intellect, decisive action, and an undefeated record in court. Just 30 minutes after my call, Jess's brilliant red sports car screeched to a halt in front of the gate. She stepped out, exuding confidence in a tailored cream-colored pantsuit, carrying a large bag of breakfast, hot coffee, bagels, and fresh fruit. Jess pushed the door open and plopped the bag on the wooden table. She looked me up and down and made a brutally honest assessment. "You look like hell. Divorcing that scumbag is the best decision you'll ever make. Now stop moping, eat something, and let's talk business. I didn't drive all the way out here to listen to you cry." I smiled. Jess's blunt, "What you see is what you get" personality hadn't changed a bit. We sat down at the table, and as we ate, I told her everything. The events of New Year's Eve, Ethan's attitude, Eleanor's insults, and especially the details of the embroidered purse and the documents my mother had left behind. I laid out the deed, the CD statement, and the prenuptial agreement on the table. Jess picked up the documents, examining every stamp and signature meticulously. The sharp eyes of the lawyer lit up. She slapped her hand on the table with a loud crack and burst out laughing. "Oh my God, your mother was a hidden genius. This move is absolutely brilliant. Look, with this prenup, Ethan completely cut off his own retreat. He thought he could use the house to intimidate you, but this document actually protects your inheritance, making it untouchable by law. You don't have to give him a single dime." Jess pulled a small notebook from her briefcase and started jotting down bullet points with a fountain pen. Her expression turned deadly serious. "All right, here's our strategy. First, securing custody of Sky. The law generally favors the mother for children under 3, but Sky just turned 3, so the court will look at financial stability and living environment to decide who is the most suitable guardian. I have my mother's savings now," I asked anxiously. "Is that enough to prove financial stability?" Jess shook her head firmly. "Savings prove you have assets, but the court wants to see a stable, monthly income to ensure the child's long-term welfare. Ethan has his own company and a high income. That's his biggest advantage. Therefore, the most urgent and mandatory requirement right now is for you to get a respectable job with a good salary. Only with an employment contract and steady pay stubs, combined with your existing assets, can we guarantee a 100% win." Jess took out her phone, tapped the screen a few times, and then showed it to me. "I know a CEO at a media company who's urgently looking for a deputy head of creative content. You have 3 years of experience as a team lead before you quit, so your foundation is solid. On January 6th, Apex Media Group is having its first of the year kickoff. I've already scheduled an interview for you that morning. You have a few days to rest up and review all your professional knowledge. You need to get back to being the old Maya, the one who dominated every student competition. Got it?" I looked straight into Jess's eyes, a fire of determination igniting in my chest. I nodded firmly. "I get it. I can do this. I will not let my daughter fall into the hands of people without a shred of humanity." On the morning of January 6th, amidst the bustling back-to-work atmosphere of the new year, life in the downtown office towers had returned to its usual hurried pace. Jess drove me to a towering, blue-glass skyscraper, the headquarters of Apex Media Group. Today, I wore a neatly tailored black pantsuit, my hair in an elegant bun, with light makeup to conceal my exhaustion. Standing in the magnificent lobby, I couldn't help but feel a flutter of nervousness. It had been 3 years since I had stepped back into this fiercely competitive corporate world. Jess patted my shoulder, her eyes full of confidence. "Just be yourself and show them what you've got. You're the best. I'll be at the coffee shop across the street waiting for your good news." I took a deep breath and stepped into the elevator to the 15th floor. Human Resources guided me into a small, glass-walled conference room. Sitting across from me was Daniel, the company's young CEO. He was tall, with sharp features and intelligent eyes that radiated the decisiveness of a businessman. Daniel flipped through my resume, his eyebrows knitting slightly. He looked up and asked directly, "Hello, Miss Vance. Your resume is very impressive, with outstanding achievements. However, there's a 3-year gap where you weren't professionally active to take care of your family. Media is an industry that changes by the minute. How can you convince me that you've maintained your edge and can keep up with current trends. I sat up straight and answered calmly, Mr. Harris, it's true that I haven't worked in an office for the past 3 years, but that doesn't mean I stopped thinking. I spent that time observing and understanding a massive customer segment that brands are always targeting, women with families. I know what they want, what their concerns are, and what kind of messaging persuades them. That's real-world experience that no textbook can teach. Daniel looked intrigued. He pushed a laptop toward me, issuing an on-the-spot skills test. Very confident. Let's do a practical test. You have 20 minutes. Write a short essay or a communications brief on the theme, the balance of a working mother. I want to see how you approach the issue. I nodded and accepted the task. My hands rested on the keyboard, my fingers touching the cool plastic keys. The topic felt like a knife twisting in a fresh wound. Balance? There was no such thing as perfect balance. To be a good mother and wife, I had to clip my own career wings, only to be discarded in the end. I didn't use cliches or lofty philosophies. I wrote with my own blood and tears, with the profound pain of a woman who had just had everything taken from her. I wrote about sleepless nights with a sick child, about the trade-off between a critical meeting and a child's first school play, about the fear of falling behind colleagues, and about the extraordinary strength that arises from a mother's sacred love when she is backed into a corner. The words appeared on the screen, each one carrying the weight of genuine emotion, designed to resonate with the deepest empathy of the reader. Exactly 20 minutes later, I finished and turned the laptop back toward Daniel. He skimmed the beginning, his reading pace slowing as he continued. The room fell silent. When he finished, he leaned back in his chair, his eyes filled with unconcealed admiration. This piece isn't the dry, calculated work of a machine. It has a soul, it has life, and it has the power to touch the hearts of consumers. Our company is preparing a major bid for a campaign in the mother and baby sector. You are exactly the piece we need. Welcome to the team. Starting salary is $95,000 a year, plus project bonuses and a full benefits package. I stood up, smiled, and shook Daniel's outstretched hand. Thank you, sir. I won't let you down. Just as I stepped out of the company's entrance, my phone vibrated in my pocket. It was a text from Ethan. I opened it. The message reeked of threats. Hiding is pointless. Bring Sky back to my mother immediately, or I'll sue you for kidnapping. Don't make me get nasty. I stood in the sun-drenched plaza, the spring breeze blowing strands of hair across my face. I typed a cold, decisive reply and hit send. If you want to sue, file your papers. I'll see you in court. From now on, all communication will go through my legal counsel. And prepare yourself for a reckoning, Ethan. The mediation room at the Superior Court of California was filled with a cold, sterile white light. The fluorescent lamps reflected off the polished wood table, amplifying the palpable tension between the two sides. I sat composed next to Jess, dressed professionally, my demeanor calm and confident. Across from us, Ethan leaned back in his chair, an arrogant smirk on his face. Beside him, Eleanor was shooting daggers at me, while his young, pregnant mistress smugly rubbed her belly, which was just beginning to show through her tight silk dress. Ethan sneered in my direction. I'm surprised you had the guts to show up. I'll say it one last time. Sign the uncontested divorce papers and hand Sky over to the Walker family. If I'm feeling generous, I'll toss you $100,000 as a parting gift. If you drag this to trial, given your unemployed and homeless status, the law will certainly strip you of your parental rights. You'll walk away with nothing but the clothes on your back. Eleanor chimed in, her voice shrill. What's the point of a barren woman like you keeping Sky anyway? Give her to us. After her new baby brother is born, she'll live a life of luxury. What do you have to compete with Ethan's wealth? I remained calm, unfazed by their vile insults. I turned to Jess and gave a slight nod. My job was to be the backdrop. Today's legal stage belonged to the best lawyer in the city. Jess pushed her glasses up the bridge of her nose and smiled coolly. She slowly opened her briefcase and pulled out a neatly organized stack of documents. She placed them on the table with a decisive thud. Mr. Walker, Mrs. Walker, she began, her voice ringing with authority. Before you make any more threats related to the law, I suggest you update your information. This is my client's official employment contract. Position: Deputy Head of Creative Content at Apex Media Group. Base salary: $95,000 a year, not including bonuses. As for housing and assets, she continued, my client is currently the legal owner of a real estate property in a Los Angeles suburb with a redevelopment value of $4 million, along with a certificate of deposit for $80,000 in a federal bank, all of which is her separate, inherited property. Ethan's arrogant expression vanished, replaced by shock. His eyes bulged as he stared at the numbers on the grant deed and bank statement that Jess slid across the table. Eleanor's jaw dropped, and she stammered, unable to form a coherent sentence. The mistress shrank in her seat, her smug look gone. Ethan reacted with panic, slamming his hands on the table and jumping to his feet. You're lying. Where would Maya get that kind of money? The house we live in is mine, and she never had access to our savings. These documents must be forgeries to deceive the court. Jess let out a small, contemptuous laugh and produced another paper, this one with a familiar blue ink signature. Look closely, Mr. Walker. This is the prenuptial agreement you yourself signed. You used it to protect your house from being divided. But you forgot that family law is very clear. Assets inherited by one spouse during the marriage are not considered community property. My client doesn't need a single cent from your house because her inheritance far exceeds anything you possess. Ethan's face turned pale, and beads of sweat formed on his forehead. He collapsed back into his chair, realizing his sole advantage, financial dominance, had been shattered. But Jess wasn't finished. She pulled a tiny audio recorder and a stack of glossy color photos from her purse. She tossed the photos onto the table, revealing crystal-clear images of Ethan and his mistress entering and leaving a hotel together. Then, she pressed play on the recorder. Eleanor's shrill, abusive voice filled the room. That useless girl, a good-for-nothing, this family has no place for you. The audio was so clear that even the court-appointed mediator frowned in disgust. Jess delivered the final blow, her voice sharp as steel. Mr. Mediator, my client has the financial means, a stable living environment, and the moral character to raise her child. In contrast, the husband has committed a serious violation of his marriage vows, with clear evidence of adultery resulting in a pregnancy. Furthermore, the paternal grandmother has exhibited a pattern of verbal and emotional abuse toward the child. If Mr. Walker does not agree to an uncontested divorce and grant full custody to Miss Vance, I will immediately file a contested suit. At that point, with this evidence, he will not only lose custody, but his reputation as a CEO will be utterly destroyed in the media. The room was suffocatingly silent. Ethan bit his lip, his hands gripping the arms of his chair so tightly his knuckles turned white. He looked at me with a mixture of hatred and fear. He knew Jess's reputation and the devastating legal and public consequences if this went public. He was a man who valued his image and career above all else. Ethan pulled a pen from his jacket pocket, his hand trembling as he scribbled his signature on the divorce agreement Jess had prepared. He gnashed his teeth and accepted the terms: full relinquishment of parental rights and a monthly child support payment of $3,000, exactly as we demanded. Eleanor burst into tears, slapping her thighs in theatrical grief over the granddaughter she had once called a good-for-nothing. But Ethan pulled her and his mistress hastily out of the mediation room. I held the signed document, feeling a 1,000-pound weight lift from my chest. The sky outside the courthouse window was a brilliant, sunny blue. My 5-year-long nightmare of a marriage was officially over. From this moment on, my daughter and I were completely free. The first Monday at work, the pace of Los Angeles was more frenetic than ever. People jostled on crowded streets amidst a haze of smog and the blare of car horns. I woke up early, ironed my work clothes, and prepared a proper breakfast for Sky. However, an unexpected problem arose. Her preschool sent a text. The school was closed for the day for fumigation due to a mosquito outbreak. I had no choice but to ask for permission to bring Sky to the office with me on my very first day. I led Sky by the hand into the Apex Media Group office. The workspace was modern, with glass walls and sleek, gray and white furniture. The air buzzed with the clicking of keyboards and the ringing of phones. People moved with brisk efficiency. Sky clung to my leg, her big eyes wide with curiosity, but she was quiet and didn't run around. HR led me to the creative content department. Standing in the middle of the large, open-plan room was a woman of about 35. She was slender but radiated an invisible power. She wore a striking burgundy pantsuit, and her short hair framed an angular face. Her sharply made-up eyes were glued to a tablet. This was Miranda, the head of creative content, and my direct supervisor. I approached her and introduced myself politely. "Hi, Miranda. I'm Maya Vance, the new deputy head. It's a pleasure to work with you. My daughter's school had an unexpected closure today, so I had to bring her with me. I hope you understand." Miranda slowly looked up. Her cold eyes scanned me from head to toe, pausing for a moment on Sky, who was hiding behind my leg. There was no welcoming smile, no handshake. The atmosphere instantly froze. Miranda's voice was flat, each word as sharp and precise as a scalpel. "In this company, we don't have the luxury of understanding personal circumstances, Miss Vance. I don't care how you were fast-tracked into this position by Mr. Harris, nor do I care how brilliant you supposedly were in the past. The only thing I care about is results. You've been out of the market for 3 years. That's a colossal knowledge gap. The fact that you brought your child to the office on your first day demonstrates that you are not fully prepared to return to a professional environment." I felt my face flush. Miranda's assessment wasn't wrong, but its brutal honesty struck at the deepest insecurity of a mother re-entering the workforce. I swallowed hard, trying to maintain a calm, professional tone. "I understand your concerns," I replied firmly. "I will prove my capabilities through my work, not with empty promises." Miranda gave a slight, humorless smile. She turned and clapped her hands to get the attention of the entire department. "Everyone, this is Maya, our new deputy head. Mr. Harris has decided to give her full responsibility for the Little Sprouts project. This is the biggest media contract of the quarter, worth millions. Maya will be responsible for the overall strategy and will present it directly to the client." A murmur went through the room. I felt a barrage of skeptical, probing glances. I could feel Miranda's simmering resentment. The Little Sprouts project was a prize the department had been chasing for a long time. Now, the CEO had bypassed everyone to hand it to a newcomer like me. In the eyes of Miranda and my new colleagues, I was the one who had used connections to steal their hard work. Miranda turned back to me and dropped a thick binder on my desk. "Our client is the largest mother and baby retail chain on the West Coast. Their demands regarding brand positioning and sales conversion are extremely high. You have exactly 1 week to complete a detailed plan, including the creative concept, budget allocation, and KPI commitments. Next Monday morning, we will have a presentation with Director Evans from Little Sprouts. Good luck. Tears and excuses don't translate into a paycheck here." With that, Miranda turned and walked into her private office, shutting the door behind her. I stood frozen, my hands gripping the edge of my desk. The pressure was immense. 3 years of changing diapers, making formula, and being confined to the kitchen had dulled my professional instincts. 1 week to acclimate, master a multi-million-dollar project, and face the hostility of my boss. This corporate battle was even more brutal than the divorce hearing. I looked at Sky, who was quietly coloring in a book on a corner sofa, and bit my lip until I tasted blood. I could not, absolutely would not, fail. At 8 a.m. on Monday, the VIP conference room at Apex Media Group was impeccably prepared to receive our strategic partner. Director Evans of the Little Sprouts retail chain entered with the powerful aura of a seasoned businesswoman. Miss Evans, a woman in her 50s with sharp, intelligent eyes, was accompanied by her team of assistants and her marketing director. Daniel, Miranda, and I sat on the opposite side of the table, ready for the presentation that would decide the fate of the multi-million-dollar contract. Over the past week, I had stayed up late into the night after putting Sky to bed. I had combed through old files, researched countless competitor campaigns, and poured all my heart and my own experiences as a mother into this plan. I was confident that my maternal empathy would strike a deep chord with the target audience. I connected my laptop to the large projector screen. The conference room lights dimmed. I began my presentation with a warm, engaging voice, guiding everyone through touching images of the difficult but proud journey of young mothers. I analyzed consumer psychology, arguing that the Little Sprouts brand shouldn't just sell products, but also companionship and understanding for women. Director Evans nodded along, her eyes showing clear empathy as I spoke about the sleepless nights spent caring for a sick child. She even applauded lightly when I concluded the creative concept portion. A wave of elation washed over me. I thought I had it in the bag. But as soon as the lights came back on, everything changed. The marketing director from Little Sprouts, a young man with thick glasses, pushed my proposal aside and spoke in a cold, challenging tone. "Thank you for the emotional concept, Miss Vance. But we are in retail, not charity. You've talked a lot about feelings, but have neglected the vital numbers. What is the projected conversion rate from this campaign? How do you plan to allocate the $5 million budget across specific digital marketing channels to optimize cost per click? What is the precise KPI commitment for new user acquisition in the first month?" The barrage of highly technical questions, focused squarely on performance metrics, hit me one after another. I froze, my mind a complete blank. CPC optimization, the latest social media algorithms, customer conversion funnels, all of it had changed so much in the 3 years I had been away. My plan had only included vague, generalized estimates based on old experience, completely lacking the data-driven analysis critical in today's market. I tried to explain the long-term vision of the campaign, but Director Evans held up a hand to stop me. Her face was a mask of disappointment. She sighed, her voice turning stern. "Miss Vance, your idea is nice, but you lack the logical thinking of a business person. I need a partner who knows how to make money for my company, not a storyteller who will burn through my budget with touching tales. This plan is too risky. We cannot approve it." A wave of shame washed over me. My face burned, and I didn't know where to put my hands. I had failed, spectacularly, on my first major assignment. Daniel frowned, his disappointment clear. The atmosphere in the room grew heavy, almost glacial. Just then, Miranda stood up. She walked to the front, unplugged my laptop, and decisively plugged in her own. The projector screen immediately lit up with a detailed spreadsheet filled with complex charts and sharp, data-driven market analysis. Miranda's voice was clear and confident, completely dispelling any doubt. Director Evans, Miss Vance's presentation was merely the warm-up to set the thematic direction. To solve Little Sprouts' sales problem, we have prepared a data-driven execution plan as a contingency. For the next 30 minutes, Miranda brilliantly presented every number, every channel of budget allocation, and provided clear, transparent KPIs for each phase of the campaign. She laid out a risk management strategy so tight that the client's marketing director couldn't find a single flaw. Miranda's professionalism, sharp insight, and deep market knowledge completely won over the Little Sprouts leadership team. Director Evans smiled, satisfied. She picked up a pen and signed the memorandum of understanding right then and there. She turned to Daniel and praised him. "You're lucky to have such a brilliant leader like her in your company." After the clients had left and the conference room door was closed, it was just me, Daniel, and Miranda. Daniel said nothing, just shook his head with a sigh and walked out. Miranda slowly packed up her laptop. She turned to me, her eyes devoid of a victor's satisfaction, only the coldness of a superior admonishing a failing subordinate. She tapped her finger on the table, her words sharp daggers to my pride. "Miss Vance, your enthusiasm and maternal love cannot be converted into revenue for the client. You have been away from the game for too long. You are overestimating your own abilities. If I hadn't prepared a backup plan today, this company would have lost a multi-million-dollar contract because of your incompetence. Don't bring a housewife's mentality into the business world. If you can't change, I suggest you write your letter of resignation." Miranda picked up her briefcase and walked out, leaving me alone in the silent room. I sank into a chair, staring at the blank computer screen. My eyes stung, but I clenched my jaw, refusing to let a single tear fall. Miranda was right. I was obsolete. I was arrogant. Today's humiliating failure was a brutal slap in the face, waking me from the rosy dream of an easy comeback. This pain, this shame, I would burn it into my memory and use it to rise again. Darkness enveloped the spacious office of Apex Media Group, leaving only the pale blue glow of computer monitors in the creative content department. The digital clock on the wall showed 9 p.m. Most employees had packed up and left long ago, returning the room to absolute silence. I still sat quietly at my desk, my hands clasped on the cold wooden surface. Miranda's scalpel-sharp criticisms from the morning still echoed in my ears, cutting deep into the pride of someone who was once a top-performing team lead. Crying or running away now was the choice of a coward. I wouldn't allow myself to fall so easily. I took a deep breath, stood up, and walked toward Miranda's private office. The glass door was slightly ajar. Miranda was still typing furiously, her black-framed glasses perched on her nose, revealing faint dark circles under her eyes. I knocked gently on the glass partition 3 times and stepped inside. Miranda stopped typing and looked up at me with a scrutinizing gaze. She crossed her arms, her voice retaining its characteristic coldness. "Still here, Miss Vance? Or are you here to submit your resignation letter? If so, just leave it on the desk. I'll notify HR tomorrow." I stood tall, looking directly into her eyes, my tone calm and serious. "Miranda, I'm not here to resign. I'm here to admit my incompetence in this morning's meeting. You were right. My thinking has atrophied after 3 years as a homemaker. I lack a sharp instinct for real-world numbers, but I am not useless. I'm asking you to send me this morning's backup plan and all of the company's current media channel rate data. I need to relearn how the market works today. Please, give me a chance to prove myself." Miranda's brow furrowed slightly, her sharp eyes scanning my determined face. She was silent for a moment, neither refusing nor mocking me as she had that morning. She turned back to her computer, made a few clicks, then pulled a silver USB drive from her desk and tossed it toward me. "This contains all the social media algorithm analysis reports from the last 6 months, along with the optimized budget rate cards our department is currently using," she said curtly. "If you still can't understand these matrices by tomorrow, then don't waste any more of our time." I caught the USB drive, clutching it in my palm. "Thank you, Miranda. I won't let you down again." That night, after lulling Skye to sleep in her small bed, I made myself a cup of strong black coffee and sat hunched over my laptop. The quiet of the night was pushed back by the thousands of numbers dancing across complex Excel spreadsheets. Concepts like ROI, cost per engagement, and targeted content distribution algorithms were initially overwhelming. But I wasn't discouraged. I looked up every term, taking meticulous notes in a large notebook. I pulled out my old plan, compared it to Miranda's, and personally tore apart the sentimental, ineffective prose, replacing it with solid, clear customer conversion funnel models. Hours passed, the bitter coffee keeping me awake. The deeper I dived, the more I recognized the brilliance of Miranda's thinking. She used data to guide emotion, rather than blindly relying on emotion itself. It wasn't until 5 a.m., when the first rays of sunlight slanted through the window, that I finished restructuring my entire professional knowledge base. In the following days, my workload doubled. I proactively asked Miranda for the most tedious data entry tasks. Gradually, her harsh demeanor shifted to one of quiet observation and acknowledgement. She began to personally teach me how to negotiate contracts with major advertising platforms and how to build multifaceted progress reports. My eagerness to learn and the resilience of a single mother slowly broke down the wall of prejudice Miranda had built on my first day. My career at Apex Media Group was finally on a stable track. In parallel with strengthening my professional life, I began to plan for our long-term future. On a free weekend afternoon, Mr. Davis brought a simply dressed man in his 40s to my house. He introduced him as Ken, a trusted architect specializing in residential projects. I spread my rough sketches out on the wicker table on the porch, pointing to the areas I wanted to renovate. "Mr. Ken," I said clearly, "this house my mother left me has immense sentimental value. I want to keep the core structure and the old tiled roof as a memory. Please help me reinforce the foundation and expand the living room windows to let in more natural light. The entire electrical and plumbing system needs to be redone to ensure safety for a child. As for the front patio, please design a large flower bed. I want to plant a big, beautiful golden medallion tree there, my mother's favorite. Ken nodded, carefully noting every detail and offering useful professional advice on materials. When he quoted the renovation cost at nearly $60,000, I agreed immediately without hesitation. I would use the savings my mother left me to build an unbreachable fortress to protect Sky. This house would be the foundation for the powerful resurgence of Maya Vance, a woman who would never bow to fate. On Sunday morning, the sky was a high, cloudless blue. The weekend air in the suburbs was crisp and peaceful. I was sitting on the wooden porch chair, carefully reviewing the construction material estimate Ken had just emailed. Sky, in a light pink dress, was chasing a yellow butterfly around the vibrant bougainvillea bush by the gate. Her cheerful laughter brightened the entire yard. Just then, a sleek, black SUV slowed down and pulled up next to the fence. The purr of its engine shattered the morning's tranquility. The car door opened, and Ethan stepped out, dressed head to toe in expensive designer clothes. Behind him was Eleanor, wearing a plum-colored silk dress and carrying a plastic bag with some cheap yogurt cups and a box of crackers. They stood before the green iron gate, their eyes critically scanning the inside of my yard. I frowned, a bad feeling creeping over me. It had been months since the court date, and Ethan had never once made contact or paid a single dollar of child support as agreed. Their sudden appearance here certainly wasn't for a friendly visit. I stood up, called Sky inside to play, and then walked to the gate. I unlatched it but stood blocking the entrance, making it clear they were not invited in. Eleanor's lip curled in a sneer. Her eyes swept over my modest house, her voice dripping with contempt. I thought you had moved on to some fabulous new life. Turns out you're hiding in this rundown, rat-infested hovel. What good are your millions on paper when you and your daughter are still living in squalor? How can Sky possibly have a proper upbringing in a place like this? Ethan cleared his throat, adopting the patronizing air of a benefactor. Maya, my mother is right. It's a disgrace for you to have Sky living in such misery. What will people think? They'll say I don't know how to care for my own flesh and blood. Besides, I hear you're working yourself to the bone at that media company, leaving the poor girl at daycare until all hours of the night. A mother as busy as you has no time to raise a child properly. My mother and I came to see her today, but we also have something important to discuss with you. I crossed my arms, my face, an emotionless mask. Thank you for your concern, Ethan Eleanor. Whether this house is a hovel or not, it is my legal property. I'm not living off anyone's charity or at anyone's mercy. I work hard to provide for my daughter's future, which is more than I can say for those who waste their time judging others. If you only came here to criticize my home, you can get back in your car and leave. I'm very busy. Sensing my firm stance, Ethan shot a look at Eleanor. She immediately opened her mock crocodile handbag and pulled out 3 thick wads of new $100 bills, bound with rubber bands. She shoved the money toward me, her tone that of a merchant in a back alley deal. This is $30,000. Cash. Ethan feels sorry for his daughter. He doesn't want to see my granddaughter waiting around at daycare all night. He's decided to give you this money as compensation for your youth, so you can focus on your burgeoning career. In return, you will sign a document transferring full custody of Sky to the Walker family. Think about it. A woman with a child in tow will never get ahead, never find new happiness. Give her to us, and you get a large sum of money and your freedom. It's a great deal for you. My blood boiled. What did they think Sky was? A piece of merchandise to be bartered? An object to be bought and sold for a few pathetic $1,000s? Their shamelessness and indecency had crossed a line that no mother could tolerate. I laughed, a loud, bitter, and utterly defiant sound. I slapped the wads of cash out of Eleanor's hand, sending them scattering across the red tiles. I took a step forward, meeting Ethan's startled gaze and Eleanor's furious one. I spat out each word, clear and sharp, tearing through their facade of morality. Take your filthy money and get the hell out of my house. $30,000? Is that all my daughter is worth to you? You cold-blooded monsters, listen to me carefully. Sky is my daughter. I carried her. I birthed her. And she is not for sale. Eleanor, you call my house a hovel. Then open your eyes and look at the $60,000 renovation permit that was just approved. Ethan, you think my job gives you the right to take my child? Don't think I don't know. Your little mistress just had a miscarriage because of her reckless partying. You've lost your chance for an heir, so now you come crawling here with this scheme to steal my daughter as a replacement. Ethan's face went white, his deepest secret exposed without mercy. Eleanor was so enraged, her lips trembled. She pointed a finger at me, about to scream a curse, but I swatted it away. I pointed down the road, my voice a low, commanding growl. I'll say it one last time. Get out. The law has granted me custody. If you ever dare to come near this house and bother us again, I will immediately file a police report for harassment and have my lawyer, Jess, file for a restraining order. Then, CEO Ethan Walker can have his face plastered all over the legal news for stalking his ex-wife. Now, go. My resolute and fierce demeanor made Ethan flinch. He knew what Jess was capable of and the legal hell I could unleash. He hastily bent down, scooped up the money, and shoved it back in the bag, then grabbed Eleanor's arm and pushed her toward the car. The expensive vehicle sped away, leaving behind a cloud of black exhaust and dust. I stood there and slammed the iron gate shut, securing it with a heavy brass lock. Looking up at the clear blue sky, I let out a long breath, feeling an immense power protecting my very soul. No one would ever touch my daughter. Absolutely no one. 3 months passed since my humiliating failure in the meeting with Little Sprouts. Apex Media Group entered the most intense, final stretch for the year's biggest campaign. The entire creative content department worked at a feverish pace. Strategy meetings were held constantly, day and night. I was completely immersed in a mountain of work, from reviewing tracking code on the website to meticulously approving every ad banner before it went live. Sky was enrolled in a top-tier international preschool with extended hour services. It was expensive, but it ensured she was impeccably cared for, allowing me to focus on the corporate battlefield. My relationship with Miranda had transformed. She no longer looked at me with cold suspicion, but with the respect of an equal. She gave me full authority over daily ad budget optimization, a highly sensitive task directly tied to client funds. Some nights, the two of us would stay in the office until 1 a.m., sharing a cold takeout box, our eyes glued to the fluctuating data charts on the big screen. In those moments of exhaustion, Miranda would sometimes take a drag from her vape pen, lean back on the sofa, and share stories about the dark side of the media industry, about clients who had cheated her, and the harsh realities of a woman sacrificing her youth and personal life to climb the corporate ladder. I listened with deep empathy, understanding the loneliness hidden beneath her ironclad exterior. Our relationship evolved from boss-subordinate to a special bond, a shared resilience of women who had been hurt but refused to surrender. The day the Little Sprouts campaign officially launched across all platforms, the entire department held its breath. I sat at the control panel, my palms slick with sweat. Daniel was there too, standing behind me with his arms crossed. The first 2 hours were tense and silent. Engagement was slow. Click-through rates were below projections. The client started sending anxious messages. My forehead was beaded with sweat, but Miranda placed a firm, reassuring hand on my shoulder. She pointed to a small, shifting metric on the screen and gave a decisive order. Maya, pivot the algorithm to target mothers in suburban and rural zip codes now. Cut the entertainment channel budget and reallocate it to family-focused online forums. Do it. I executed the changes with lightning speed. It was a risky, strategic shift, but it demonstrated the brilliant intuition of a master strategist. Just 30 minutes later, the performance graph shot upwards like an arrow. The server monitoring system began beeping incessantly, signaling an explosive surge in traffic. The number of orders for newborn products on the Little Sprouts website skyrocketed. The heartfelt stories about motherhood that I had personally written went viral, receiving tens of thousands of authentic, empathetic comments. By the end of the day, the campaign had surpassed its sales KPI by 150%, setting a new record for Apex Media Group. The office erupted in cheers. Daniel applauded enthusiastically. He came over, shook Miranda's hand, and then looked at me with immense pride. "You two were outstanding. Director Evans just called me. She is ecstatic with the results and has decided to sign an exclusive 2-year contract with us. Tonight, the company is throwing a celebration dinner. It's on me." The clinking of glasses echoed through a luxurious riverside seafood restaurant. The atmosphere was festive, with everyone toasting the project's success. As the party wound down and most had left, Miranda and I remained, sitting on a stone bench overlooking the quiet river, its surface reflecting the glittering city lights. Miranda swirled the red wine in her glass, her gaze distant. Her voice was warm, a stark contrast to her usual cold demeanor. "Maya, you've proven your true ability. You have a cold head for data and a warm heart for human emotion. That's the sharpest weapon in this business. You progressed much faster than I ever expected." I smiled and clinked my glass against hers. "It was all thanks to your tough training. Without that slap in the face you gave me that day, I'd still be lost in my own arrogant past. You're not just my boss. You're the greatest teacher I've had on this comeback journey." The night breeze blew off the river, cool and damp against our skin. We finished our wine, feeling the sense of growth forged from immense pressure and relentless effort. Tomorrow, the sun would rise, and new campaigns would begin. But the Maya of today was no longer a woman easily broken. I had forged myself into steel, ready to face any storm that lay ahead. The relentless pace at the office swept me into a constant whirlwind. On Wednesday morning, the Los Angeles sky was a gloomy, overcast gray. Dark clouds gathered, carrying the damp promise of a heavy rain. I was at my desk, focused on reviewing a project report for a client. The creative department was quiet, filled only with the familiar, rhythmic sound of typing. Suddenly, my cell phone rang, shattering my concentration. I glanced at the caller ID, and my heart skipped a beat. It was Miss Davis, Sky's preschool teacher. A powerful sense of dread washed over me. Teachers never called during work hours unless it was an emergency. I quickly answered, trying to keep my voice calm. "Hello, Miss Davis. This is Maya. Is everything okay with Sky?" The young teacher's panicked, stuttering voice came through the line. "Maya, you need to get to the school right now. Sky's grandmother came and took her. This morning, during outdoor playtime, an older woman came to the gate. She said she was Sky's grandmother and had an ID and a signed authorization letter from you. She was crying, saying you were in a serious car accident and in the emergency room, and the family needed to bring Sky to see you one last time. The security guard saw her hysterical, and the papers looked right, so he let her in to get Sky without calling to verify with you first." The pen fell from my hand and clattered onto the desk. My head spun, my ears rang, and my vision blurred. I slammed my hand on the desk, shouting into the phone, all semblance of politeness gone. "What are you talking about? I never wrote an authorization letter for anyone. I specifically instructed the school to never release Sky to anyone from her father's side of the family. They lied. Those documents are fake. Call the police, now." The entire office turned to look at me. Miranda, hearing my shout from her glass office, rushed out, her expression grim. Seeing my face drained of all color and my body shaking, she understood immediately. Without a second's hesitation, she grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the elevator. "Don't panic. Crying won't solve anything. We're going to the school right now to get the security footage." She gave orders in a steely tone, simultaneously clicking her car keys to unlock her vehicle remotely. Miranda's sports car sped through the busy streets, ignoring the chorus of angry horns. I sat in the passenger seat, my hands clenched so tight my nails drew blood. 1,000 terrible scenarios played out in my mind. Eleanor and Ethan's plan was horrifyingly cunning, preying on the sympathies of the school staff to pull off a kidnapping in broad daylight. They had lost their minds, willing to use the most despicable means to force me to give up my child. 20 minutes later, we screeched to a halt in front of the preschool. Miranda and I ran into the security office. Miss Davis and the head of security were waiting, their faces pale. On the desk lay the forged letter and a photocopy of Eleanor's ID. I ignored the worthless papers and demanded they rewind the security footage from the front gate that morning. The screen clearly showed Eleanor, wearing a large coat with the hood up, putting on a dramatic, tear-filled performance for the guard. After signing the release form, she snatched a confused-looking Sky and ran toward a car parked about 50 yards from the gate. Sky struggled, trying to get down, but Eleanor clamped a hand over her mouth and shoved her into the back seat. Miranda pointed at the screen, zooming in on the car. It wasn't Ethan's luxury SUV, but a silver Toyota minivan with an out-of-state license plate. The windows were tinted so dark, you couldn't see inside. She narrowed her eyes, pulled out her phone, and dialed a number. "Mark, I need a rush trace on this plate. 60A something. It's urgent, related to a child abduction." Miranda spoke quickly, putting the call on speaker. In less than 3 minutes, the man's voice came back, carrying information that made my blood run cold. "Miranda, that vehicle is registered to a guy named Marcus Thorne. He's a known underworld figure, with a nationwide warrant out for his arrest, suspected of involvement in a cross-border human trafficking ring. These guys are extremely dangerous and violent. This is way beyond a civil matter. You need to call the Major Crimes Division immediately." A loud clap of thunder rattled the windows, and the sky opened up, unleashing a torrential downpour. My chest felt like it had been ripped open. My daughter. They hadn't just taken her. They had handed her over to a human trafficker to ensure I would never find her. I collapsed to the cold floor, my hands covering my face as a raw, agonized scream tore from my throat. "No, Sky. Mommy will not let anything happen to you." The rain hammered against the windows of the security office, creating a chaotic din. I sat numbly in a plastic chair, my red-rimmed eyes fixed on my dark phone screen. Miranda paced the room, making call after call, leveraging her network to help track the silver van. Despair began to seep into my very being. A 3-year-old girl in the hands of professional human traffickers. Every second that passed felt like a death sentence hanging over her head. Just then, my phone buzzed violently on the glass desk. The screen lit up with Ethan's number. My heart leaped. I immediately motioned for Miranda to be quiet. With my other hand, I quickly enabled call recording before answering. Ethan's cold, arrogant voice came through the speaker. He got straight to the point, speaking with the confidence of someone holding all the cards. "Maya, I assume you've heard from the school by now. Sky is with us. Don't bother calling the police. That van has already crossed 3 county lines. The traffic cameras can't track it." I gritted my teeth, forcing down the rage that was boiling inside me to maintain my composure. "Ethan, you're insane. Do you have any idea who was driving that van? He's a wanted fugitive. Are you colluding with human traffickers to extort me? What do you want?" Ethan laughed, a dry, chilling sound. "I don't care who the driver is. My mother just hired him for a single trip. What I want is very simple. You will contact your lawyer, Jess, immediately. You will draft a new agreement, completely relinquishing your parental rights and legally transferring guardianship to me. You will also withdraw all the evidence of my affair that you submitted to the court. When I have that signed and notarized document in my hand, I will tell you where you can pick up Sky. If you try any tricks, if you call the police, I can't guarantee what my mother and that driver will do to her. Her crying is giving me a headache." He hung up. The dial tone droned on like a knife, twisting in my heart. They were using my daughter's life to blackmail me, to force me to my knees. They wanted to whitewash their reputations, regain control, and were ruthless enough to push a child toward death to achieve their goal. I wouldn't allow myself to be weak for another second. I opened my contacts and called Mr. Davis. My voice was now sharp and decisive, with no room for fear. "Mr. Davis, Sky has been kidnapped by Ethan and Eleanor. They hired a van driven by a wanted criminal named Marcus Thorne. Ethan just called to extort me for custody. Please, use all of your connections in the police department to report this to the highest level. This is a kidnapping ring." Mr. Davis didn't waste time with questions. His voice was grave and urgent. "I understand, Maya. I'll report this directly to the captain of the Robbery Homicide Division. Once it involves a trafficking ring, this is no longer a civil custody dispute. You stay put and stay calm. Wait for my call." Time crawled by. An hour later, my phone vibrated again. This time, it was a text message from an unknown number. It contained a single, short line of text. Apt 402, Abandoned Industrial Complex, 12th Street. Come alone if you want your daughter. I showed the message to Miranda. She frowned. That complex is a notorious haven for criminals and lowlifes. There must be an internal conflict, someone in Thorne's crew who wants out and leaked the location. The police will need time to get a warrant and plan a raid. We can't act recklessly. I shot to my feet and grabbed my coat. My eyes burned with an unquenchable fire. I can't wait for the law or for anyone else's delay. Every minute Sky is in that hellhole, she's suffering. I am her mother. I will get her out of there myself. Miranda looked into my eyes and saw the absolute determination of a mother willing to risk everything. She didn't try to stop me. Instead, she opened her expensive handbag and took out a small, black, thumb-sized device. Maya, take this. It's a micro GPS tracker with a panic button. I'll share the signal directly with Mr. Davis and the police. You just stall for time. The second you press that button, they'll move in. Be safe. I took the device and hid it securely in the inner lining of my coat. I nodded my thanks to Miranda, then opened a black umbrella and ran out into the sheets of rain. The final, life-or-death confrontation in the belly of the beast had begun. The taxi dropped me at the entrance of a narrow, muddy alley. Before me stood a dilapidated, crumbling apartment block, hidden deep within an abandoned industrial park. The paint was peeling, and mildew stained the cracked concrete walls. The stench of garbage and sewage was overwhelming. This place was a world away from the gleaming city, a perfect hiding spot for the darkest of deeds. I walked through dark, wet corridors. The fluorescent lights flickered, illuminating graffiti-covered walls. My steps were firm on the concrete stairs as I headed to the 4th floor. There was no fear, no hesitation. My mind was consumed by a single image: Sky crying, waiting for me. Standing before the rusted iron door of apartment 402, I could hear familiar sounds from within, the pained cries of a child, mixed with Eleanor's shrill, grating shouts. White-hot rage flooded my senses. I didn't knock. I kicked the door with all my might, right in the center. The old, rotten door couldn't withstand the force, and burst open. The scene inside the damp, squalid room hit me like a physical blow. Ethan was sitting on a plastic stool, smoking, his face anxious. Eleanor stood in a corner, clutching an aluminum coat hanger, bringing it down on Sky's small arm. My daughter was curled into a ball on the filthy floor, her cries hoarse. Her arms and legs were covered in purple bruises and the red marks of bite wounds inflicted by her own grandmother. In a dark corner by the window, a heavily tattooed man, undoubtedly Marcus Thorne, was cleaning a sharp switchblade. Seeing me burst in, Ethan jumped, dropping his cigarette. Eleanor froze, her eyes wide with shock. Sky heard the noise and looked up. Her vision was blurred with tears. Her small lips trembled as she weakly called my name. My heart shattered. I rushed forward, shoving Eleanor so hard she stumbled backward and swept my trembling daughter into my arms. I stroked her tangled hair, trying to give her warmth and safety. Mommy's here. I'm here to take you home. No one will ever hurt you again. Ethan jumped up and blocked the doorway. He pulled a pre-printed document from his pocket and threw it on the floor in front of me. You got here faster than I thought. Now that you've seen her, sign the custody papers. Do as I say, and I'll have Mr. Thorne let you both walk out of here safely. If you resist, you're not leaving this room today. Eleanor scrambled to her feet and spat at me. This stubborn bitch needs a good beating to learn her lesson. Sign it, then get out of my sight. Keeping this brat has been nothing but trouble. I picked up the document, my eyes scanning the despicable, coercive words. I lifted my head and looked straight at Ethan with utter contempt. I clenched my fists, ripped the paper in two, balled it up, and threw it in his face. My voice rang out, strong and clear, in the small room, unwavering even in the presence of an armed criminal. You must be dreaming, Ethan. You are the most pathetic excuse for a man I have ever known, using your own child to blackmail your ex-wife. And you, Eleanor, you are a monster in human skin, torturing your own grandchild like this. You think this piece of trash has any legal value? You think I'm stupid enough to walk into this trap alone? Thorne, seeing my defiance, stepped forward, pointing the tip of his blade at me. "This one's got guts," he growled. "You don't know who I am, do you? If you want to die, I can help with that." I didn't back down, keeping Sky protectively behind me. I pointed at Thorn, then turned to Ethan and Eleanor, exposing their heinous crime with the sharp edge of the law. "You're Marcus Thorn, a fugitive wanted nationwide for human trafficking. And you two," I said, looking at them, "do you have any idea what the penalty is for being an accomplice to kidnapping and aiding a human trafficker? We're not talking about a few years in prison. We're talking about a life sentence. Are you willing to trade your lives for this worthless piece of paper? The police have this entire building surrounded. There's no escape for any of you." My words hit their mark. Ethan's face turned ashen, and he took a step back. Eleanor, hearing life sentence, went limp and collapsed onto a plastic chair, gasping for air. Even Thorn hesitated, his shifty eyes darting toward the window to check. They never expected an unarmed woman to have this information and launch such a sharp psychological attack. They had fatally underestimated the fury of a mother, pushed to the edge. The air in the musty room was stretched taut, ready to snap. Ethan licked his dry lips, his eyes darting between me holding Sky and the hyper-alert Thorn. The cowardice of a man accustomed to using money to solve his problems was now fully exposed. He took another step forward, his arm reaching out to grab Sky. "Stop bluffing!" he roared, his voice cracking with panic. "How could you call the police? I saw you drop your phone in the lobby. Thorn, grab the girl. Use her as a hostage. Now." On Ethan's command, Thorn lunged forward like a cornered animal, the blade of his knife glinting as it sliced through the dim air, aimed directly at us. Eleanor screamed. In that split second of life or death, I reached into my coat, my thumb pressing down hard on the red button of the GPS tracker. A high-pitched, piercing chirp emanated from the tiny device, an emergency signal transmitting directly to law enforcement. Simultaneously, I shoved a small glass table into Thorn's path. He tripped, stumbling forward, his knife clattering uselessly onto the cracked floor. Instantly, the wail of police sirens tore through the rain-soaked air outside, a whole fleet of squad cars descending on the location. The thunder of heavy boots stormed up the iron staircase, the clatter of gear signaling a full-scale raid. Ethan froze, his eyes wide with disbelief as he stared at the flashing red and blue lights reflecting on the grimy window. He staggered back against the wall, shaking uncontrollably. Thorn scrambled up and abandoned his knife, making a dash for the door. But it was too late. With a deafening crash, the rotten door was kicked off its hinges. A team of SWAT officers in full tactical gear, armed with assault rifles, stormed in. "LAPD!" the team leader yelled. "Drop your weapons! Hands in the air!" Thorn was tackled to the ground before he could react, his wrists immediately secured in cold steel handcuffs. Ethan stood paralyzed against the wall, offering no resistance as he was taken into custody, his face a ghostly white. In the corner, Eleanor, witnessing her son being cuffed, let out a horrifying shriek, her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed to the floor, unconscious. Paramedics rushed in to treat her for a massive heart attack. Mr. Davis pushed through the crowd and entered the room. His face was soaked with rain, but his eyes were filled with relief. He helped me to my feet, his familiar, warm voice a balm to my frayed nerves. "It's over, Maya. I'm here now." I held Sky tight, the tears I had suppressed for hours finally breaking free. I buried my face in her small neck, inhaling her familiar scent mixed with the mustiness of the room, thanking every power in the universe that she was safe. I carried my daughter out of that dark place. In the courtyard below, the rain was still falling. Miranda was waiting by her car, holding a large black umbrella. She said nothing, simply draped a warm coat over my shoulders, and opened the car door, ushering us into its safe, protective embrace. A month after the terrifying ordeal, the Los Angeles Superior Court convened again. This time, it was not a civil mediation, but a public criminal trial. I sat in the gallery, reserved for victims, dressed in a neat business suit, my hair pulled back, my gaze steady. Beside me, as always, was Jess, the steel-willed lawyer, flipping through the pages of the police investigation report. The courtroom was solemn, so quiet you could hear the rustle of the court clerk's papers. The bailiff's voice rang out, and the defendants were let in. Ethan entered in a striped prison jumpsuit, his head shaved, his shoulders slumped, the arrogant CEO completely gone. Behind him was Eleanor, looking frail and years older, needing assistance to stand before the judge. In the corner was Marcus Thorne, the trafficking kingpin, facing a litany of charges. The trial proceeded. Audio recordings, witness testimony, and crime scene reports were presented. Ethan kept his head bowed, never once daring to look at me. He confessed to everything: hiring Thorne, instructing his mother to kidnap his daughter, and using extortion to try and gain custody. Eleanor wept, mumbling belated apologies, and blaming her actions on ignorance of the law and a misguided love for her granddaughter. After deliberation, the judge returned and read the final verdict, his voice echoing with the power of justice. Based on the evidence and testimony presented, this court finds the defendant, Ethan Walker, guilty of kidnapping, child endangerment, and conspiracy. He is sentenced to 4 years in state prison. As for the defendant, Eleanor Walker, considering her documented medical conditions and her cooperation during the investigation, the court sentences her to 3 years, suspended, with supervised probation. At the verdict, Ethan collapsed, his hands covering his head in utter despair. 4 years. His business career, the very thing he had committed these crimes to protect, was now in ruins. Eleanor let out a mournful cry and slumped against a court officer. She had avoided prison, but the sentence of her own conscience and the scorn of society would follow her for the rest of her life. As the bailiffs led Ethan away, he paused as he passed my row. He looked up, his eyes a complex mixture of regret, bitterness, and perhaps a flicker of resentment at my resolve. I stood and met his gaze without flinching. My own eyes were cold and calm, like a frozen lake in winter. All the love, pain, and hatred of the past had vanished, leaving not a single ripple. From that moment on, Ethan Walker was a stranger, a name permanently erased from the lives of my daughter and me. I walked out of the courthouse into the bright, warm sunshine. Jess put an arm around my shoulder and smiled. Congratulations. I took a deep breath of the clean, free air and walked forward. The legal storm was over. It was time to build a new, brilliant future for myself and for Skye. On a weekend evening, the grand ballroom of a 5-star hotel in downtown Los Angeles glittered under crystal chandeliers. It was an internal party for Apex Media Group to celebrate the monumental success of the Little Sprouts campaign and to announce a new senior management appointment. I wore an elegant, sea green evening gown that highlighted my confident poise. On stage, a smiling Daniel handed me the official promotion letter. As of today, I was the new vice president of content for the company. From the crowd, Miranda raised her wine glass to me, a rare but genuine smile of approval on her face. The room filled with applause, a well-deserved recognition of my incredible journey. I knew my mother, somewhere above, was incredibly proud. Later that night, I drove back to the house my mother had left me, now beautifully renovated. As I opened the gate, I was surprised to see Mr. Davis sitting on the porch. In front of him was a pot of tea. Skye was already fast asleep, having been dropped off by the sitter. I sat down across from him. Mr. Davis looked at me with a serious, almost sad expression. He took a faded brown envelope and a small, laminated black and white photograph from his jacket pocket and pushed them toward me. "Maya," he said, his voice heavy with a secret kept for decades, "I've waited until you were strong enough to handle this truth. This is the last letter your mother wrote before she passed. She made me promise to only give it to you when you had completely escaped the Walker's shadow and were standing firmly on your own 2 feet." I curiously picked up the letter. Inside, on a thin sheet of paper, was my mother's handwriting, steady but with a slight tremor. "My Maya, when you read this, I trust you have become a strong, independent woman. I have kept a secret from you your whole life, not to deceive you, but to give you a peaceful life. Your biological father did not die in a car accident, as I always told you. His name is Arthur Sterling, the man in the photograph. 32 years ago, he was a poor engineer. We were deeply in love, but his family in New York was very powerful. They had arranged a marriage for him to the daughter of an influential politician to advance his career. I didn't want to stand in his way, to ruin the future of the man I loved, so I quietly left for the West Coast when I found out I was pregnant with you. That man is now the chairman of the Sterling Group, a renowned real estate corporation in New York. He has no idea you exist. The letter slipped from my fingers, my world tilted on its axis. My father wasn't a nameless, deceased worker, but a powerful, living billionaire. My mother had chosen a life of silent sacrifice, enduring the stigma of being an unwed mother, working herself to exhaustion to raise me, all to protect the career of one man. I picked up the photo. A young man with a strong, handsome face and bright, ambitious eyes smiled next to my beautiful young mother. The features on his face bore an uncanny resemblance to my own. Mr. Davis continued softly. Your mother never wanted compensation, but she wanted you to know your roots. I had someone look into it. Mr. Sterling lives a life of luxury, but that arranged marriage was loveless. His wife passed away early, and they had no children. You are his only blood relative in this world. You have a business trip to New York next month to sign a contract. Daniel arranged it at my request. The decision to meet him and how to face him is entirely up to you. I closed my eyes, a single hot tear rolling down my cheek. My mother's immense sacrifice was a sharp pain in my heart. A billionaire, a massive corporation. Those things meant nothing to me. I wasn't in need of money. I didn't need belated pity or compensation. I would go to New York, not to claim a wealthy father, but to confront that man, to show him the result of the sacrifice my mother had paid for with her entire life. In November, the early winter chill of New York City seeped through my Californian thin coat. I stepped out of a rideshare and stared up at the towering reflective glass skyscraper of the Sterling Group. A golden, stylized eagle, the corporate logo, gleamed from the top, a symbol of the immense power and wealth of the chairman on the top floor. Daniel had arranged a business meeting for me. A secretary in a perfect uniform led me to a private executive elevator. The 65th floor was like a palace, with white marble floors and expensive oil paintings. The door to the chairman's office opened. Behind a massive mahogany desk sat a man of about 60. His hair was streaked with gray, but he carried himself with an air of immense authority. It was the same strong-jawed face from the photograph, but now his eyes held the shrewd wisdom and power of a magnate. It was Arthur Sterling, my biological father. He looked up and gave me a polite, formulaic smile. Miss Vance, welcome. I've heard great things about your work from Daniel. Please, have a seat. Let's discuss the strategy for our new eco-resort project. I walked forward but didn't sit. I stood tall, my heart pounding, but my posture calm. I placed my purse on his desk, opened it, and took out a brown envelope. Inside were the old black and white photo and a recent picture of Sky, smiling brightly. I pushed the envelope toward him. Mr. Sterling, I said, my voice clear and proud. Today's business meeting was just a pretext arranged by my colleagues. I'm not here as a business partner. My name is Maya Vance. I am the daughter of Eleanor Vance. I came here to return these to you. Arthur Sterling frowned, but when his eyes fell on the old photograph, his entire body went rigid. The hands that signed billion-dollar contracts began to tremble. He snatched the photo, holding it close, his eyes wide with disbelief. The powerful chairman's eyes immediately reddened, and tears he had held back for decades began to stream down his face. Maya? He choked out, his voice broken. You're Eleanor's daughter? No wonder. I thought your eyes looked so much like hers. Where is she? I've had people searching for her for decades. I looked at his belated tears, without a shred of emotion. My mother passed away from lung cancer earlier this year. She chose to disappear so that you could have the brilliant career you have today. She lived her entire life with dignity, raising me on her own without a single penny from you. Hearing of my mother's death, he buried his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking with grief and regret. After a moment, he staggered to his feet and went to a hidden wall safe. He returned with a thick portfolio of documents, a black credit card, and an ornate set of keys. He placed them all on the desk, pushing them toward me, his eyes pleading. Maya, I have wronged you and your mother 1,000 times. I have no other children. This entire corporation, 10% of the voting shares, the townhouse on the Upper East Side, and this card, it's all yours. Please, take it. Let me have a chance to atone for my mistakes. I looked down at the fortune that countless people would kill for, but I felt nothing but a profound sense of peace. I gently pushed the portfolio and the card back toward him, my movement decisive, without a hint of hesitation. Mr. Sterling, you should keep these. My mother taught me to be self-reliant, to make my own way with my own mind and my own hard work. I have a successful career and a warm home for my daughter and me. I didn't come here for money or to claim an inheritance. I came only to show you that even without the protection of a rich father, my mother raised me to be a dignified, proud woman. You don't owe me anything, because in the story of my life, you were never a character. Arthur Sterling stared at me, stunned by my resolute refusal. He looked at the photo of Skye, and fresh tears fell. I picked up my purse, gave a slight, polite nod, and walked out of the door, without a single look back. That chapter was closed. My life was only moving forward. Returning to Los Angeles, I was immediately swept up in the year-end work frenzy. The holiday spirit was beginning to fill the streets. The meeting in New York felt like a distant dream, leaving no disturbance in my life with my daughter. On Saturday, I had the day off and decided to spend it at home with Skye. The renovated house was perfect, modern and bright, yet retaining its peaceful, classic charm. Sunlight streamed through the large glass doors onto the green lawn. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. I wiped my hands on my apron and went to the gate. Standing there was a familiar figure. It was Arthur Sterling. He wasn't wearing an expensive suit, but a simple gray polo shirt and dark slacks. In his arms, he held a giant pink teddy bear and a massive Lego set. Seeing my surprise, he gave me a shy, gentle smile, his eyes filled with the cautious hope of someone asking for entry into another's world. "Maya," he said hesitantly, can I come in and see my granddaughter for a little while?" I took the first flight out. I just wanted to see her. Seeing this powerful man standing so humbly at my gate, my resolve softened. He had come without bodyguards, without a limousine, without contracts, only as a grandfather yearning for family. I sighed and unlatched the gate. "You can come in," I said, drawing a clear boundary. "But I hope you won't mention money or family lineage in front of her. Skye is too young for adult complications." He nodded eagerly, his eyes lighting up. He followed me inside. Skye, who was coloring on the rug, saw the stranger and hid behind me, her eyes wide with curiosity as she peeked at the giant teddy bear. Arthur knelt on the floor, erasing the distance between a chairman and a child. "Hello, Skye," he said in the softest voice. "I'm a friend of your mommy's. I brought you some presents. Children are sensitive to sincerity." Skye slowly stepped out from behind me and wrapped her arms around the bear, which was bigger than she was. She giggled, a pure, clear sound that melted the heart of the 60-year-old man. All morning, Arthur Sterling sat on the floor with Skye, patiently assembling Legos. His fingers, so used to signing major deals, fumbled with the small bricks. "You did it wrong, Grandpa," Skye would direct. "That piece is supposed to be blue." He would laugh and follow the instructions of his 3-year-old granddaughter, without complaint. I leaned against the kitchen doorway, quietly watching them. For 3 years, Skye had been deprived of a father's love and rejected by her paternal family. Seeing her so happy, so carefree, my ironclad heart softened. Perhaps the grudges of adults should not rob a child of the love she deserves. At lunch, I served a simple meal. Arthur ate with gusto, praising my cooking. Afterward, he insisted on helping me clear the table. Standing beside me at the sink, he spoke quietly. "Maya, I know I can never make up for the pain I caused your mother and you with money. I will respect your decision. I only ask for one thing. Please let me be a grandfather. I want to watch Skye grow up. I want to spend my last years getting to know her." I turned off the water and looked at him. His sincerity was undeniable. I nodded and smiled, a genuine smile of relief. My mother would have wanted Skye to have one more person who truly loves her. "You can visit your granddaughter whenever you want. This house will always be open to you." Arthur started to cry, tears of happiness and gratitude. He gently patted my shoulder, unable to speak. The biggest knot of the past had finally been untied by forgiveness and the sacred bond of family. In the final days before the new year, the scent of spring was in the air. The golden medallion tree in the front yard was in full, glorious bloom. Today, I was hosting a housewarming party, marking a completely new beginning. The guests weren't business contacts, but the people who were my true family. Jess, in a brilliant red dress, was making Sky roar with laughter. Miranda, in a soft silk dress, sat beside her, sipping wine and watching me with the proud eyes of a mentor. Mr. Davis and Arthur were on the porch, sharing a pot of tea, two men from different worlds, now united by a shared history and a granddaughter. The house was filled with warmth and laughter, a world away from the cold silence of the previous New Year's Eve. As the night ended and the guests left, Sky was fast asleep, clutching the pink teddy bear. I finished cleaning up, made a cup of chamomile tea, and sat on the porch. Just then, my phone rang. It was an unknown number, a call from the state penitentiary. I answered calmly. There was a moment of silence, and then Ethan's hoarse, tired voice came on the line. "Maya, it's me. It's family call day." I didn't know who else to call. My mother's in a nursing home. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. To you and to Sky. Being in here, I've realized I threw away the most precious thing in my life because of greed and selfishness. I was wrong, Maya. I listened to his sigh of regret. The Maya of a year ago might have cried, or screamed, or cursed him, but the Maya of today felt only a deep, profound calm. Forgiveness isn't a gift you give to others. It's a gift you give to yourself. Ethan, it's all in the past, I said, my voice gentle but firm. The law has given you your punishment. I hope you use this time to become a better person. But as for us, that chapter is completely closed. Goodbye, Ethan. I ended the call and placed the phone on the table. The dark, painful past was finally, definitively over. I looked at the golden blossoms of the tree my mother had loved, shimmering under the moonlight. My new year, my new life, had truly begun.